Hello and welcome to Up on the Roof. Today I have Karl, and Karl is from iStore. Good morning, Karl. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks, Ria, for having me on your show.
That's great. I wanted to know a little bit about water heating. So obviously under Greenbank's accreditation in Victoria, New South Wales and nationally, water heating has gone viral, right? Why is everybody installing water heating at the moment?
Uh, Look, I think it was a natural progression for the renewable energy industry to get into doing more things. Business diversification is good for everybody's businesses, particularly in winter. Hot water is an excellent thing to do when you can't get on the roof. So for the southern states of Australia, where it's miserable and wet, and you can't put solar panels up, you can still install a heat pump. And of course, with the likes of Saul Griffith and his book, The Big Switch, which I think is getting on to being 12 months old now.
Yeah, it's
Um, there's obviously lots of people in the renewable energy industry have read the book and gone, well, hang on a minute, I'm only doing one piece, and there's all these other pieces that I should be doing to help my customers lower their energy costs.
yeah,
So
house package, right?
yeah, well, the really interesting thing is every time I talk to someone in the solar industry, I ask them, do they know what the conversion is from megajoules to kilowatt hours? And in 9 months of asking people that question, I have not had a single person that's got the right answer, except for Saul Griffith, of course.
And I'm
Um,
certainly not going to answer it.
Come on. So it's 3.6 megajoules is 1 kilowatt hour. And if you look at, obviously, lots of people are getting bombarded in their Facebook feeds from energy retailers now that energy costs are going up, another 25 or 30% across Australia. And it says that the average Australian uses 4,000 kilowatt hours a year. And then it gives you a price of what that default offer or the offer of that energy retailer would be.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody that uses 4,000 kilowatt hours a year. That's only 11 kilowatt hours a day, and I use that in my sleep. But the interesting bit is the gas, and typically says the average gas use is 50,000 megajoules. Now you can math out that 50,000 megajoules divided by 365 days is 137 megajoules a day. Divide that by 3.6. I get another 38 kilowatt hours a day worth of energy that I'm using in gas. So
Wow.
given that 11 kilowatt hours a day is vastly less than any bill I've ever seen by anybody, I'm guessing that the gas quantity is also a lot less. And of course, of that gas bill that's averaged out across the year, we're using 3/4 of it in winter. So
Yeah.
the energy input into our houses in winter from gas, I'm estimating, is around 100 kilowatt hours a day, plus our electricity usage. And with a reverse cycle air conditioner, we can divide that number by somewhere between 3 and 4, depending on whether we've got a ducted reverse cycle air conditioning system or a split system. And of course, hot water makes up 20,000 megajoules worth of that gas bill. So
Yeah.
again, if I run those numbers, that's around 16 kilowatt hours a day worth of energy input for hot water that we have to buy from somebody else. And that 16 megajoules worth of gas, I don't know anyone that's got a gas well in their backyard, but everyone's got space on their roof for solar panels. And unfortunately, in the southern states, it's just not warm enough for most of the year for a solar thermal system to do a good job,
Yeah.
which means we either have to boost them with gas or boost them with electric. And with the level of efficiency that we're getting out of a heat pump of around that 400% coefficient of performance of 4, however you want to write it down, it takes less energy to run a heat pump per year than what you would spend just boosting a solar thermal system in Melbourne winter.
Right.
So they make a lot of sense. The other thing is that usually it needs we certainly recommend having it on its own circuit. It's a permanent fixed appliance and shouldn't be installed on a power point.
Yeah.
And similarly, things that small enough that they can be plugged in on a power point, probably aren't going to have enough grunt to be able to reheat the water during those smaller solar hours in winter. So realistically, in winter, we're lucky to have 10 till 3 for decent solar production. So we need to be able to heat the water in that time period. And the average house is using a couple of 100 litres of hot water a day. So if we're doing that with a low power, say a 500 watt compressor, it takes longer than 5 hours to reheat the water. It's taking like 7 or more hours to heat the water.
Wow, how interesting. So essentially, all the CEC installers that have installed solar in the last 15 years could actually go back and upgrade their clients with water heating.
Absolutely, and it makes a lot of sense for their clients. Queensland blows me away. They've got heaps and heaps of bottled gas. You look down the sides of houses in Queensland and there's bottled gas. Bottled gas not only inconvenient when it runs out, it's a health and safety issue for guys moving them around because they're big, heavy, and awkward. You need fancy trucks and health and safety procedures. You've got to fill them up. When you fill up those gas bottles, there's a vent. So you connect the gas bottle to a source of gas and you fill it up with a liquid. And all that time during filling that bottle, you're venting gases to atmosphere. So from an environmental perspective, bottled gas is a disaster. And you used to be able to fill up your barbecue gas bottle at the petrol station, open up a little valve, there was gas being emitted into the atmosphere. They stopped that. It was outlawed because a couple of petrol stations blew up, a little bit of static on your clothes. And that's why you've got swap and goes these days. But make no mistake, someone's got to fill those gas bottles somewhere. And obviously they have better health and safety controls, but we're still losing a lot of gas to the atmosphere that's unburned. And that isn't a great thing for the environment. So heat pumps solve that problem as well. And look, we've always wanted to know what our database of liabilities could do for us. Those liabilities being our customers and our warranties. And we thought, one day we'll be able to sell them batteries. This is going to be great. But batteries are still really expensive, and showing economic payback is just starting to happen in the various states. And that's entirely dependent on the cost of energy. Rather than the cost of batteries coming down, the cost of energy's gone up to make them economically viable.
Yeah, right. So as a suite, when you're talking about electrification or energy efficiency and bill savings and even load shifting, you'd say that a water heating system, solar on the roof, battery storage, insulation, double glazed windows, the whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah, look, so there's some interesting stuff that I had the pleasure of spending a weekend with Saul Griffith, and double glazed windows as an example. Let's say my house could use 8 kilowatt hours a day less energy with double glazed windows. If I'm feeding that with gas, then that could make a difference of 8 kilowatt hours. But if I'm using reverse cycle aircon and I've got a coefficient of performance of 4, I'm only actually saving 2 kilowatt hours worth of energy. And of course, I've got twice as much glass and significantly more cost in the building itself. In order to put those double glazed windows there. I've done a couple of houses, both the last houses that I lived in, I spent at least 10 grand double glazing them. One was close to the airport and it was just simply for noise.
Yeah.
And the other one had old sash windows, and basically I waited anxiously for the day that we sold the other house so that we could get the guy in to do the windows because they were just crap. And there was nothing I could do to stop them rattling in the wind and leaking a heap of air. So I like double glazed windows, but it's not helping us get to net zero. So last year, Australia's emissions were still more than the previous year. So we haven't turned the curve around yet. Our emissions are still increasing. And the only real way to lower our emissions is to implement technologies that use 4 or 5 times less energy to do the same job. So if I'm using gas for heating my spaces or my water, I'm not getting 100% of the energy into those spaces or into that water. I'm losing 25% or more of that heat energy up the flue that I can't manage to transfer into the air efficiently enough or in a small enough space. And that's completely the opposite to an air conditioner. I can be 400% efficient instead of 75% efficient. And that obviously represents a massive decrease in energy consumption for our homes. The fact that we can then provide that energy from our own solar system, it blows me away every day. It's fantastic. Obviously, it gives people energy independence.
Correct.
And with the cost of energy going up or by 25 and 30%, I just can't see how, as Saul Griffith says, it's an inflation-busting technology that lowers our cost of living and lowers the supermarket's cost of, refrigerating food and keeping the lights on. So solar up and air conditioner away.
Yes, I agree. And water heating, correct? I actually have a confession to make. I don't have a heat pump or a energy efficient water heater, so I think I need one ASAP.
Well, especially with that little family of yours, Ria. And the economics is actually quite crazy. So historically, it's cost more money to heat the water than buying the water. In Victoria, water costs around $5 for 1,000 litres. And if you stand in the shower for, say, an iStore 270, it heats the water to 60 degrees, and you can only shower at about 40. So with a 20-degree inlet water temperature for you to get to 40 degrees for you to have a shower, you use about 500 litres of water before you run out.
Wow.
So it costs 4 hours of runtime to put that energy back into the tank for you to go again. And if we're using that from our PV system that we're otherwise exporting to the grid at, say, 5 or 6 cents, it costs, say, 25 cents to heat the water. And water costs about $5 for 1,000 litres. So it costs $2.50 to buy the water, and it costs 25 cents to heat it. So I think I should start watering my lawn with hot water. It's so cheap. And of course, that's just truly amazing. So any scenario where I've said to the kids, get out of the shower, it's a waste of energy and a waste of water.
They can
these days
now.
Yeah, they certainly can. It's about it's a whole lot cheaper than a beer at the airport at $18.50 to heat, a 500-litre shower worth of water. So frankly, it means we can go back to having a lifestyle of abundance without the environmental consequences and without the cost.
That's absolutely fantastic. You heard it first. Heard it first
Abundance.
from Karl.
Look, you haven't heard it first from me or Saul Griffith for that matter.
No, we've been talking about it for years.
Yeah, we've been talking about it. We've known what we needed to do for a long time. And ultimately, in terms of iStore, the owners of the business figured out that, at least from a health and safety position, you don't have to put guys on a roof putting up big, heavy solar thermal collectors and put tanks on the roof that you need cranes and special lifting equipment to do. You can install these things on the ground. And for new builds, it means that you haven't got someone roughing in a solar thermal collector 6 months before the end of the build, who wants to get paid, and then he's got to go back and install a tank and an instant gas thing the day before people move in, so that someone doesn't steal the instant gas thing off the side of the house. There's no one stealing there's no one stealing an iStore with 270 litres of water in it. The thing weighs 400 kilos. We're not just going to pick it up and carry it away.
As long as they're insulated, I don't have a problem with any of it. The whole insulation at the moment, there's been many questions around how to insulate the pipes and the PTR valves and those sorts of things. So, that's been a very complex situation at my end. So if we're talking to any plumbers out there, make sure you insulate them correctly. Or we won't create certificates.
It's amazing how much of a far and wide impact 4 lines in the standard has.
Yeah.
But look, I noticed that, in the solar industry, we've got CPD points and we need to keep up those CPD points in order to keep our accreditation. I don't think that plumbers have had any such ongoing training for these sorts of things. And even the place next door to me had an old guy and an apprentice install a rooftop solar thermal system tank with a gas booster. And it's an absolute disaster on the wall. And what do you say to the guy training the apprentice? You say, mate, this doesn't even comply. And you're the guy training this guy. I can't believe it.
Yeah, I think training is the key. Education is the key. So where can we actually see you? I was just thinking we've actually got Energy Next coming up in Sydney on the 18th, 19th of July. So do you have a stand there?
Yeah, we've got a stand at Energy Next. We have got the whole crew coming across, so I think we should have 4 or 5 people on the stand. It'll be a tough couple of days, like any of these trade shows, and big shout out to all of the companies that are exhibiting at Energy Next, because it's a massive undertaking, particularly now that we've got 3 or 4 different trade shows in Australia to attend and work around and try and grow our businesses together.
Yeah, navigating those shows has always been difficult, making sure that you can attend. I've also had to attend a few carbon events as well. So not only the renewable energy sector, energy efficiency, but also the carbon space. It can be quite interesting.
Yeah, I haven't got into that one, but if there's money in it, let me know. Because obviously the solar industry this time of year is always insanely competitive, and I see people doing stupid stuff, which is selling systems systems that are too small in particular. I'm a great advocate of the massive system that fills your roof. I finally got my installer back last week and added another 2 kilowatts, so I'm at 26.6 kilowatts on the roof now. And guess what? Still not enough in winter.
I'm gonna upgrade my system. I think I have about a 10.5 kilowatt system, or 10.3, and then I might have to put a iStore on the house, or a energy efficient water heating system. You also were on a podcast. I was at the Smart Energy Council Trade Conference with you and Nige and Luke. And so tell me a little bit about the podcast.
So Just Another Solar Podcast is probably one of the longest running, most successful podcasts that we've got in the industry. And it started out by Luke and myself just chatting over a beer on a Friday night. And we got a few industry legends together on Zooms, because we were all locked down on the East Coast, and we would have a bit of a chat. And Luke said, we're discussing some great stuff here. Some innovation, and some things that we can do to help grow the industry, particularly during COVID, what was happening with supply and pricing and so on. He said we should be sharing this with other people, so that we don't have to answer the phone and tell a 30-minute story to every customer that rang up. We could just say, listen to the podcast instead.
Fantastic.
And here we are. I think we're like 40 episodes down now, something along those lines. And I always say it blows me away every fortnight we manage to get another amazing person on the podcast, and some of these things that we forget, the amazing things that other people in our industry are doing. So we really enjoy doing it. It's great.
Yeah, we'll keep up the good work. We really appreciate it. We like listening. Thank you for your thanks for today. I've really appreciated you coming up on the roof, and I'll see you in Sydney.
Will do. Thanks for having me, Ria.
Thanks, Karl.